we need to allow something to echo from that first reading. We need to let it echo in our hearts and in our minds. Paul receives a vision of the Lord saying, don't worry about what's going to happen to you here in Corinth. I have many people in this city. And then a few lines down, what are we hearing? The Jews, upset over what Paul is teaching, haul him before the tribunal. They haul him before the proconsul, trying to probably have him imprisoned or flogged or perhaps even executed. Paul manages to move on from this situation because the proconsul just has no interest in the matter at all. But this synagogue official, Sosthenes, who was probably helping Paul, who probably invited Paul into the synagogue to teach, he gets beaten. We need to hear that when Jesus says, do not be afraid, do not worry, keep doing what you're doing, it'll all be okay, that in Jesus' mind, everything being okay can include persecution, arrest, beatings, mortal danger, and so on. We need to remember this. Perhaps you have heard some very well-meaning pious person say to you, maybe even about this global pandemic, we're all in God's hands, don't worry, it'll be all right. And then day after day you see on the news how many people have died. Or maybe word reaches you about a loved one who is infected. Or maybe then you realize that there is no more work for you. Your place of employment is crumbling under the economic weight of the lockdown. And you hear those words, it's all in God's hands, or it'll all be all right. God is in control. And it's so natural to think, well, if this is what it looks like when God is in control, then please give me anyone else to be in control. It's a very natural reaction. And in fact, it's a natural reaction for so many of us in the face of suffering. What does God reply to this? Look behind me. There. This is God's reply. God entered into our situation and took upon himself betrayal, injustice, violence, suffering, and death. Even an experience of complete alienation from God so deep and so harrowing that from the midst of the worst of his sufferings, he cried out in an even deeper spiritual anguish, my God, why have you abandoned me? And then there was the resurrection. Everything was okay in the end. Better than okay. Better than anyone could have asked or imagined. And that, my brothers and sisters, for the Christian, is the path that we are meant to accept. We hear Jesus telling us in the gospel, you are going to have troubles. You are going to be like a pregnant woman about to give birth. You are going to be in agony. But that's going to be temporary. And on the other side of that, what you are going to have is going to be so incomparably precious, so beautiful, so wonderful, that your joy will wipe out almost the memory of the suffering that you've had to endure. That is the joy. That is the goodness. That is the hope that is promised to us as Christians. Not that everything is going to be hunky-dory and sunshine and rainbows every day. And it bothers me so deeply that so many Christians even seem to think that that is what Jesus promises. They seem to think that it's a matter of ticking off all of these little boxes. Well, if I read my Bible every day, if I tithe my income, if I say my prayers, if I do good works, if I pray to the saints or the Blessed Mother, then I will be surrounded by a magical bubble of protection, and no trouble will ever come near me. This is such a grave mistake. It is not what Jesus said would happen. He foretold that we would suffer. He foretold that we would be in agony, that we would endure persecution, misunderstanding, betrayal, all the things that he endured. But that on the other side of all of that, there would be something greater, something so wondrous that no one, he said, knows what is in store for those who love the Lord. In these days, between the Ascension and Pentecost, when we are praying earnestly for the life of Jesus to fill us, to fill the church, of course it already has, but we long for it in a new way, in a deeper way, because we have changed. We have changed since the last time we commemorated this great solemnity. Our minds, our hearts can be more open now. We pray earnestly for the gift of the Spirit of wisdom and of discernment, that we might look at our sufferings and see how temporary, how fleeting they are. And in confidence, in hope, in faith, anticipate the good things of the Lord, the wonders that no mind can even imagine that he longs to bestow upon us. Let us remain fervent in these prayers, my brothers and sisters.